Hello, everybody. Welcome back to my channel, and thank you for joining me for another true crime video. Today, we are picking back up with the updates in the Ruby, Franke, and Jodi Hildebrandt case, and in the last video, we went over some of the newly released evidence, mainly the body cam footage from the recovery of Ruby's 2 children from Jodi's multi-million-dollar home. We went over the arrest of Ruby and Jodi, as well as police interviews with Ruby's husband, Kevin Franke, and police interviews with Jodi and Ruby. And today, we're going to talk about a lot. We have a lot to talk about today. It's going to be a long video. We're going to talk about the calls Ruby made from jail after being processed. We're going to talk about the contents of Ruby's journal, if you can call it a journal. She goes into great depth and very great detail on what she did to her children and why. At least it's her why. So, like I said, long video, grab a snack, get comfortable. You're going to be here with me for, a few hours, especially once we get into the journal stuff, because there's just so much to talk about. Like the audacity of this woman, I am so furious. So let's dive in. But before we do, we should have a word from the sponsor of today's video, and that's glassesusa.com. As most of you know, I wear glasses, and it is both a blessing and a curse because I love the way I can change my glasses to complement my look or my outfit or my mood, but I hate the entire process of picking out and purchasing new glasses because it can be extremely overwhelming and stressful. Honestly, going out and shopping anywhere can be extremely overwhelming and stressful, and the glasses store is the worst. Because you feel like you have to make a decision and you're like, which glasses look good on me? And you're trying on a bunch of glasses and there's people running all over and then more people are coming in the store and you're like, I better pick these glasses out quicker. I'm going to be here all damn day because I'm going to be waiting in line behind these people anyways. It doesn't have to be that way because at glassesusa.com, their mission is to change the way we purchase glasses. Glassesusa.com was created on one simple belief that eyewear shouldn't break the bank, and so they allow people to shop for and purchase glasses from the convenience of their own homes, and they offer a wide array of high-quality frames and lenses at economical prices with a risk-free shopping experience. And listen, I've been getting my glasses from glassesusa.com for a long time, far before I was on YouTube, far before they sponsored me. Glassesusa.com is one of the biggest eyewear retailers in the U.S. They offer thousands of eyeglasses and sunglasses from brands such as Ray-Ban, Gucci, Oakley, and many, many more. What is best about glassesusa.com, though, is that the glasses start at only $39. That's up to 70% off of retail prices. And that means you don't have to pick just one frame. You can buy 2 frames, 3 frames, 4 frames. I don't know. Go ham. One of my favorite parts of using glassesusa.com is how easy they make it to find and then virtually try on different frames. So if you're feeling overwhelmed by the amount of choices, as I always am feeling overwhelmed by the amount of choices, all you have to do is take a simple quiz. It's going to take you about 1 minute to complete, and then it's going to show you glasses that will fit your face shape, your needs, etc. So with their AR virtual try-on tool, you just upload a picture of yourself and then virtually try each of these frames on to see the one or the ones that suit you the best. And it is surprisingly accurate and easy to use, and you can do it right at your kitchen table or from your bed or your couch while you're drinking a glass of wine. You cannot do that in the glasses store. I mean, I suppose you could, but you might be asked to leave. Also, shopping online with glassesusa.com is a risk-free experience with free shipping and returns and a 100% money-back guarantee within 14 days. So if you don't like the glasses, if you don't feel like they look as good on you in real life as they did with the virtual try-on tool, you just send them back for a refund. So check out these cool frames. These are the Amelia E. Ariel, and I really was drawn to them because I love the unique shape. I love the pop of blue against my very, very, very pale complexion. They're super sturdy. They're really pretty. They're lightweight on my face, but they also feel like strong, like I'm not going to break them if I drop them or accidentally fall asleep with them on my face, as I do. I also recently got these glasses. These are the ones I've been wearing the whole time I'm talking to you, basically. These are the Amelia E. Minola and Rose Gold, and I love them. I love how dainty and pretty they are. I love the cat eye shape where they kind of go up at the ends. Because these are simple frames, the shape adds a really cool element to them, and I've been needing new sunglasses since I can't keep them to save my life. Literally, I'm always either breaking sunglasses or losing them, and I am in love, okay? Head over heels in love for these Ray-Ban cockpit frames in brown and gold. I feel so cool wearing them. Like, I feel like I should be in my car with the windows down, blasting Don Henley's Boys of Summer, you know? That's how I see myself when I'm wearing these sunglasses. I love them. I also really love the gradient lens, so you can see that the brown is kind of darker on the top. It gets lighter as it goes down. I really, really enjoy that part with the gold. The brown and the gold together are beautiful. And all of these frames, like I said, sturdy, amazing, impressive quality. And I got blue light blocking on the eyeglasses because I'm on my computer and my phone so much. And right now, GlassesUSA.com is offering a crazy exclusive discount on top of any coupon code they currently have on their website. And this discount is just for my followers. It's only available for 24 hours, so you need to act fast. Click the links in the top of my description box to get all the details right there. If you are in the market for new glasses or sunglasses, especially with summer coming fast, all you have to do is, once again, click the links in my description box. Take advantage of this exclusive 24-hour deal from GlassesUSA.com. I know I will be doing it. Thank you so much to GlassesUSA.com for sponsoring today's video, and let's dive in. So before we dive into our new information, our new content, I want to address some comments from part 1 of this, I guess, sequence of videos. Either way, the last video I did, there were people saying when I mentioned that Ruby was going completely mute and not speaking to the police at all, there was people saying, like, that's exactly what you should do with the police, and that's how you should handle the police, and that's our right. And I completely agree with you. I'm sorry if I was unclear. I thought it was bizarre that she wouldn't talk to them at all, because all she had to say was, I'm not talking to you until I have my lawyer, and they would have stopped asking her questions, right? They would have left her alone. I mean, they might have tried a few times, but it wouldn't have been hours of these police officers being like, dude, are you okay? That's all I was saying. It felt more like a game to me because all she had to do was say lawyer. And then they would have been like, all right, let's get you your lawyer. We're not going to talk to you anymore. But she didn't do that. She just stayed completely quiet. To me, it was more of a control tactic of a, I'm out of control of the situation, but I'm going to retain and regain as much control as possible by setting the stage for me being completely silent and not even telling you I want a lawyer so that you continue to come to me and ask me questions because I like the attention, right? That's what it seemed like to me. After their arrests, Ruby Franke and Jodi Hildebrandt were sent to Purgatory Correctional Facility, which is Washington County's jail located near St. George, Utah, at Purgatory Flats. This is also the same place that FLDS prophet Warren Jeffs spent a year of his life, and I just think it's a bit ironic that two women who found themselves to be so godly and full of heaven's light ended up in a place called Purgatory. But I digress. On August 31st, the day after she was arrested, Ruby talked to her husband, Kevin, from the correctional facility. And she may have been speechless with law enforcement, but with Kevin, Ruby had a lot to say. And I want you to pay attention to the fact that Kevin and Ruby are going to talk about a lot of things. They're going to talk about the kids being evil. They're going to talk about money and the arrests making the news. They're even going to talk about real estate investments because, why not? Life goes on, right? But what Kevin Franke does not do, at least in the audio released, and I believe that this entire call was released, what he does not do is demand answers from his wife. The first thing, right? If it was me, the first thing I'm saying when I get on the phone with my partner after they've been accused of this, they're going to say hello, and I'm going to say, is this true? Did you hurt our kids? Did you tell me to trust you and then spend a year abusing my children after banishing me from the home? Inviting me to leave the home so that I couldn't stop you, so that I couldn't protect them? Is this true? There's none of that.
Where I see the facts, I see the truth, and that's what I'm gathering.
You know my heart.
What are they charging you with?
2 charges of second-degree felony for child abuse.
2 charges of second-degree felony child abuse.
Yes.
Okay. Wow. That's very serious.
It's interesting. I had the prompting over the last month to read Viktor Frankl. I was reading him, and it was like the worst part was not knowing the end. He said he said he had an inmate, this man searched for meaning. He was a prisoner in World War II, and he said the worst part and the greatest bringing of depression was not the lack of food, and it wasn't the weather conditions, it was not knowing how long it would last. So I think I was prepared for this. I do feel strong. I feel calm.
Ruby tells Kevin that she's been charged with 2 counts of child abuse, and Kevin responds, "Oh, that's serious." Ruby said she's doing okay behind bars. She said she kind of saw it coming, not because she did something wrong or illegal, simply because no one's going to understand why she did it. And it's going to look bad. And if they only understood why she did it, then, she wouldn't be behind bars. But since she kind of understands everyone's living in distortion, everyone's a moron, nobody has God inside of them the way Ruby and Jodi have God inside of them, she knew she was going to end up behind bars.
Adults have a really hard time understanding that children can be full of evil and what that takes to fight it. You've seen what it takes to fight evil. It's not the person you're fighting. And it can look like something it's not. And you've been there, you know that. And so I don't know any adults who are going to see the truth. So I'm calm about this, and I just pray that you'll hang in there.
Ruby's right 100% about this. Adults won't understand. Children won't understand. Animals won't understand. Little beetles and ladybugs flying and crawling around outside won't understand. Little green men from Mars who will use their advanced technology to watch 8 passengers on YouTube, they won't understand either. The only people who will understand are people like you. Mentally ill, evil, and completely out of touch with reality. Children can be full of evil, Ruby tells Kevin, and this is something the world is just not ready to understand or accept. Honestly, Ruby Franke kind of sounds like those adult men who show up to houses with pizza and candy trying to meet some 12-year-old girl they talk to online, and the next thing you know, their face is around to catch a predator. The kind of men who say that these little girls were seductresses and they knew what they were doing and they're trying to get grown men into bed because that's the power they hold and they know they have this power and they enjoy it. It is despicable. Ruby sounds like an abusive asshole who blames her victims for the abuse. But Ruby also says she's calm. She's accepting of all of this, even accepting that no one will know how brave she was to fight evil in the form of her defenseless children. Kevin tells Ruby that he's going to step up. He's going to fight for custody of Russell, even the other 2 children, Abby and Julie, who are currently in foster care. Those are the only minor children. The 2 older children, Chad and Sherry, already yeeted the house, right? They're out. They're not anywhere near this family. So we've got the 4 minor children left. And Kevin's like, I'm going to step up. Step up and get custody of my own children. But Ruby isn't too interested in talking about the kids because she's thinking about her next business venture. Wouldn't it be nice, she asks her husband, if she could open an Airbnb or something when she finally gets out? And then she can be like Jodi, just abusing kids in one room and housing Airbnb guests in another.
This separation was last thing I want to think of some ways that I could bring in money or make some money if you didn't ever come back. So that's when I asked if you would co-sign on a loan if I found a house. And maybe I could Airbnb it or rent it out, or I've been playing with numbers in my head and I think I could make something, but I don't want to be dumb. I want to be very conservative. So I pulled the money and I have it in a bag. And
With you? Do the police have it?
well, I don't know what the police took. I don't know what the police have.
But the bag is at Jodi's house?
They can't just take people's money. I mean, that's not right.
Well, they're not going to take the money, but when they have a search warrant, they have access to everything in the house.
Sure. Yeah.
I have a feeling we're going to need that money.
We might do. We might do. So I haven't been making big purchases. I've been very conservative. I think the biggest expense has been the kids' schooling.
So Ruby and Kevin, they're discussing a bag of money that they think they might need, but they believe the police removed from Ruby's house during the execution of the search warrant. So what money are they talking about exactly? I'm not quite sure where the money came from, but it sounds like there was about $85,000 in a bag that Ruby had taken out from the bank, and she says she wants to open an Airbnb and all this jazz, but really that money was intended for something completely different. It was intended for land to be purchased out in Arizona, land that would be very isolated, more isolated than Jodi Hildebrandt's Ivan's Utah home, where they could abuse the children in peace and not have to worry about anyone seeing or any pesky neighbors being around to save the kids from the abuse. Ruby did not want that money to be a little innkeeper, as we will find out in her journals. We will find that this Arizona land was in the works at the time that Ruby and Jodi were arrested. Kevin Franke also talks to Ruby about how a friend of his or theirs, Ted Danson, not the Silver Fox Ted Danson, a different Ted Danson. But anyways, Ted Danson sent Kevin a text being like, hey, I just heard, if you need anything, call. And Kevin informs Ruby that the news of what had happened, of her arrest and Jodi's arrest, it had broken.
Stormy sent me an article, and it just broke my heart. I just wanted you to know I'm thinking about you, and if I can ever be a resource, we are always here.
Are we in the news?
It sounds like at least you're in the news. I don't know about me. I don't know what he's talking about. But
I'm wondering if they went to Sherry to, ask her questions.
I don't know.
These bookings are public.
I know they are. And a couple of months ago, Business Insider was reaching out to me, and I ignored their email. But I'm going dark.
This is a witch.
I'm not at BYU. I'm not at BYU anymore, so I don't know how they're going to find me.
Yeah, maybe it was a blessing. This is a witch hunt. The devil's been after me for years.
Ruby is like, are we on the news? And Kevin's like, I don't know. You are, bitch. What have I got to do with this, right? He's like, are you on the news? I don't know. I'm going dark, man. I'm going dark. I am separating myself from you. Ruby also is going on and on talking about how the devil's been after her for years, which is, it's just so ironic to me because you look at somebody like Ruby or somebody like Jodi, and to me, they seem like devils here on earth. They're demons. And she's like, the devil's been after me for years, So, and once again, as we'll find out from her journal, she claims the devil's been after her kids for years. So the devil's been after your kids for years and they're getting abused to hell. And the devil's been after you for years. Why are you not being abused? Who abuses you to remove the demons from you? Ruby also said something like, he's mad at her. And I believe this is a reference to Jodi Hildebrandt. And I don't know who she's talking about when she says he's mad at her, whether she's referring to the bestie number one, the devil, or bestie number two, God. But somebody's mad at Jodi. And then Ruby tells Kevin that she hasn't said a word to the police. And then he's like, well, you do know this call is being recorded, right?
Mad at her.
Have you shared that with the detectives?
I have not said a word until I have an attorney.
Okay, well, you know that this phone call is being recorded.
You have 1 minute remaining for this call.
Yes, that will come out. That will come out.
I mean, the timing could not have been better with Kevin being like, this call's being recorded, right? And then it's like, you have 1 minute remaining. And it's this reminder like, oh yeah, I'm in jail. I'm not just chatting with my husband on the phone while I wander around Target picking up home decor. I'm in jail and this call's being recorded. And nice recovery, Ruby, because in my opinion, she was not thinking that the call was being recorded, or she'd completely forgotten, as do most people when they first get to jail, because they aren't used to every move they make and every word they say being watched and listened to. But she's like, yeah. It's all going to come out, I knew I was being recorded. Kevin then tells Ruby what the police have told him about the state of their two youngest children, Eve and Russell.
They're going to be in the hospital for 3 days.
so weird. It's just not necessary. Like trying to exaggerate this.
I don't. They didn't show me.
The hero.
But they didn't show me any pictures or anything. But the way they described it, it was very serious.
That's weird, says Ruby. That's unnecessary. They're exaggerating their condition. Who is? The police? The doctor? Who is it? Is it a whole, conspiracy amongst the police and the doctors and the prosecutors to take a completely healthy children, put them in the hospital for 3 days, and then pretend that there's something wrong with them? Their conditions being exaggerated by everybody, even medical professionals, who is their job to be accurate about what kind of injuries and wounds a patient has. They're exaggerating their condition. Ooh, this woman, and this is what drives me crazy about people like Ruby and Jodi. They talk on and on and on about being honest. Honesty is the best policy. Accountability. Taking responsibility for your actions. Taking responsibility for the place you are in life and taking responsibility for getting yourself out of it. But they take no responsibility ever, unless they need to, which we're going to see that Ruby will start taking some responsibility, sort of, when she realizes that it'll be looked upon in a better light if she does, if she stops, insisting that causing physical, mental, and emotional abuse to your children is no big deal. Ruby clearly doesn't take this seriously, in this call at least, and she's not in the least worried about her kids. So another jailhouse phone call happened 2 days after Ruby's arrest. This was September 1st, and Ruby's complaining about the facility she's in, how it's torture, listening to people scream all night, but apparently she had no problem sleeping every other night knowing she was torturing her kids, And once again, we'll see in her journals that there's some nights she has her 12-year-old son, Russell, sleeping outside on the patio while she sleeps inside in a warm bed. And she had no problem sleeping then, but when she's being tortured, she's got a hard time getting rest. But the worst part is not the screams of the tortured prisoners. The hardest part, the worst part, is how misunderstood Ruby is by everyone, just like all the greatest figures throughout Mormon history. That's what she says. She says she, feels just like Joseph Smith. And you guys know who Joseph Smith is. We've done plenty of videos about Mormons. Plenty of them. So you know who Joseph Smith is.
It was horrible. It was torturous last night, hearing the screaming and the banging and people. It's like, okay, that's upsetting. But the most upsetting thing is that I am completely misunderstood. That is the most horrible feeling. Like my own family misunderstands me, they misinterpret me, and poor Jodi, they misinterpret her, they misunderstand her. She puts her neck out on the line for people, and then they get mad at her. I mean, it is just horrendous. It's horrendous. And you know what? Every Joseph Smith, every wonderful man of God has had to be misunderstood.
That's right.
And so I'm going to get out of this. Who knows? Maybe in 10 days I'll get out of this. If I'm, if truth prevails right now, or, who knows, like 20 years? I don't know. I don't know how long. But I'm going to step out. I'm going to say I went through everything. I have seen God's children suffer. All the people here, my jail cellmates, have been beautiful women, but they've been hurt. They've been deceived into drugs, and my heart just has so much compassion for them. And I have compassion for the cause, and I have compassion for myself.
Do you have compassion for your kids, Ruby? Do you have compassion for any other human besides yourself? And poor Jodi, too, right? She's just trying to help everyone. And she's always getting misunderstood because of all that distortion flying around Utah.
In your hearing, I don't know if you've considered this. I don't know if it'd be helpful, but you could have the house. And if all the kids go to the house, you've got room there, and I will gladly stay away and let you guys be. So I don't know if that's helpful. I'm just giving it to you if it is.
Thank you. And in the discussions with my attorney, that's the only way that we're going to retain custody of the children.
That's fine.
He is 35 years in this, and he said even if you are acquitted and are released, they will place legal restrictions on your access to the under 18 children.
I figured such.
Ruby says to help Kevin get custody of the kids, he can have the house and she'll stay clear of him and the house and the kids because this woman literally thinks she's going to be out walking the streets again any day now. Kevin's like, listen, thanks for the offer, but that's what's going to happen anyways because you're going to have restrictions placed on you even if you're acquitted. And she's like, I know. God told me. And this is where we find out that it wasn't Jodi Hildebrandt or anyone else that called Kevin to let him know he should pick his kids up in Ivan's after Ruby and Jodi got arrested. It was Ruby.
God told me. God told me when I was driving before I called you. I didn't have any information. I didn't know anything. And the Spirit said, your children are going to be removed. And I cried out loud. I'm like, no, I'm not done. I'm not ready. And God told me I'm done. And I just,
The weirdest monologue comes from Ruby at this point, as she tells her husband that she's a good girl who doesn't do naughty things. It's just that Satan is taking everything from her.
Satan has taken everything away from me that I love. And I'm a good woman. I don't do naughty things. I'm a really good girl.
It's yucky, right? To hear a grown-ass woman tell her husband in a baby voice, I really good girl, daddy. Me no do naughty things. It's just wild, my friends. Wild. Banana split sundae with extra nuts. Then Kevin lets Ruby know he's committed to her, no matter what happens, which is great, except I think the no matter what happens loyalty in a marriage ends when your partner has harmed your children in every way a child can be harmed.
I am committed to our family. I'm committed to you and our marriage, no matter what happens.
Thank you.
I will be here to support you in any way that I can.
Well, thank you for stepping up.
I do need to go, but
okay. All right.
Call me back.
I did think it was funny because Kevin's like, I'm here for you. I'm by your side no matter what. I won't leave you. And then Ruby starts talking about like how she's feeling. And Kevin's immediately like, yeah, I actually have to leave you now, because I have to go because I can go. I can leave my house. I'm not in jail. And Ruby seems to still be dying on the hill that she did nothing wrong. And not only that, she's put her buddy Jodi Hildebrandt on that hill with her. They're both just good, misunderstood people. But in phone calls from jail a few months later, I believe in October, Ruby's not feeling so warm towards Jodi Hildebrandt anymore. And she mentions how being in jail has given her the space she needs away from Jodi. And she was happy to see that Jodi had pleaded guilty, that Jodi was taking responsibility for what she had done, what she had forced Ruby to do.
Yeah. Absolutely. I could not come out of this without his grace, without his mercy, without his help. This has been the strangest and the most miraculous intervention. It put everybody where they needed to be. It separated me from Jodi, so I'm not hearing her. And I think just being gone and not hearing her has cleared a lot of things up for me.
Did you see that Jodi pled guilty today?
I did see that, yes. Is that a relief for you?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a big relief. It's a big relief. There would have been positive the other way, too, had she not pled guilty. There's enough evidence that she could have been convicted for life, but that would have been messy. It would have been really messy, and the kids would have.
So do you and her get the same outcome no matter what now, or is there a chance that it would be different?
That's a really good question. That's one that I've asked Lamar. No, we can still have different outcomes. So the next thing that will happen is I will fill out probation, and there's another P, paperwork. And basically you go through your history and you tell them your history, which there's no history on me. There's nothing, no criminal history, no mental health history, nothing. And I'm also hiring a professional to do a mental health evaluation, just to say she's good, like there's no mental health problems at all. And then that will go to my probationary board. Jodi, she can lie on her paperwork, and she probably will. I don't think she's going to give them her history. I think in the interview it's going to be apparent that she's mentally ill. So that will affect how long someone, because they're looking, how repentant are you? How much responsibility are you taking? How are you aware that what you've done is wrong? And she's not. She's the only reason she pled is because she didn't want to do life. She knew I would testify.
I honestly just don't know how someone can be so self-aware and so not self-aware at the same time. Ruby seems to understand that for her case, the courts are going to want to see that she's repentant, that she regrets what she did, which seems very self-aware of her, or at least situationally aware. Like she's with it enough to understand that her continually insisting that what she did to her children was not wrong is not going to get her anywhere. However, she also, in the same conversation, says that she doesn't have mental health issues and she's going to hire someone to prove that, which seems not only unself-aware, but also lacking in, once again, accountability. But we can already see the tide turning. We can already see Ruby setting her plan in place to put all the blame on Jodi Hildebrandt. And Ruby also mentions that the prosecuting attorney, who's a man named Eric Clark, he can write letters at the time of probation to tell the probation board whether or not someone is still a danger to society, whether or not they should be let out early. And apparently Eric Clark told Ruby that he was not going to write one of these letters for Jodi, meaning that Ruby, will be able to get probation when the time comes, but Jodi Hildebrandt may not. Ruby Franke is going to end up making a plea deal with the Washington County Prosecutor's Office, where she pleads guilty to 4 of the 6 counts of child abuse against her, and she's going to have her sentences running consecutively in exchange for her testimony against Jodi. Ruby's attorney is going to say that she was a devoted mother who was taken advantage of by Jodi, a person she trusted. The attorney said, quote, "Initially, Ms. Franke believed that Jodi Hildebrandt had the insight to offer a path to continual improvement. Ms. Hildebrandt took advantage of this quest and twisted it into something heinous," end quote. And I do not disagree that Jodi Hildebrandt took everything in her life and the lives of the people around her and twisted it into something heinous, but she had help with that. She had Ruby's help. And even before Ruby knew Jodi Hildebrandt, she was getting reported to CPS and DCFS for child abuse on her 8 Passengers channel. Are we really going to act like Ruby was this model mother, this impeccable homemaker, this good person before Jodi Hildebrandt showed up? Or are we going to go with the more likely scenario that like finds like, and they both saw something in the other that made them feel a sense of familiarity? Just like Chad Daybell and Lori Vallow meeting up together, they saw each other and they were like, hey, we're both messed up. We're both evil. We both don't have any empathy and don't give a shit about anybody else but ourselves. Let's be friends. The lawyers are also claiming that Jodi systematically isolated Ruby from her extended family, her older children, and her husband, Kevin, and this prolonged isolation resulted in Ruby being subjected to a distorted sense of morality shaped by Jodi's influence. According to the Windward law firm, Ruby's representation, she engaged in a lot of introspection during her several-month stint in jail, and she understands now the full weight of her actions. It does seem that the prosecutor, Eric Clark, might believe that Ruby is less culpable than Jodi, as in a statement he said, quote, "Franke accepted Hildebrandt as her leader and followed her instructions and guidance," end quote, which does have the vibe of putting less responsibility on Ruby. And here is Eric Clark trying to explain this to reporters outside of the courthouse.
Do you think I'm just trying to understand, why would the mother, in your opinion, deserve less time when she's torturing her kids versus a stranger? Wouldn't you hold the parent more accountable?
And again, again, so they both got the same deal, right?
Yeah.
Like we didn't give her a less of a minimum time. Part of the mission of what we do when we incarcerate people, I'll obviously want to see justice done. And a mother abusing her children in this way is awful. And people should go to prison for that. Something that is really important is that people shouldn't be released from prison unless they've hit the maximum amount of time they should be in, or they've done enough that justice is served, and it's clear that they're no longer a risk to the community. And I'm super concerned that Jodi, if she were released today, is a significant risk to gather followers. Ruby was essentially a follower of Jodi, and if she's gathering people and then convincing them to do this kind of thing, that's a huge risk, and those type of people shouldn't be walking the streets when they've committed these kind of crimes.
Also, I don't know who Ruby is talking to on some of these phone calls. It sounds like a younger woman, but listening to Ruby made me have a feeling that once Ruby's out of prison, she's going to hop back onto YouTube and start making videos about surviving prison as a white Mormon woman. The Mormon Survival Guide to Prison. I can see it now on Amazon, written by Ruby Franke, forward by Jodi Hildebrandt and Joseph Smith. It was a collaboration. So at least Ruby seems positive and hopeful about the future, I guess.
And, half of the stuff that is said goes over my head, and then I have to go, I come back and I ask the girls here, I'm like, what does this mean? What does this mean?
Yeah.
Probation could look like going home, like you could go home. Sometimes, it might look like going home with restrictions, like you can go home, but you need to live with somebody who's responsible and you can't be around certain people. Like they may say you could go home if your parents agree to house you, but you can't go home to where your kids are living. It could look like something like that. Or it could look like something where I have an ankle monitor. Or it could look like you can go home if you pay a $10,000 fine. Or maybe it could look like instead of serving the rest of your time, we'll give you some good time and you can go home in half the time. Or so I think that getting off on probation, I think looks like there's several different ways that could happen.
Now that Ruby knows these calls are being recorded, she can start her campaign of attempting to look repentant and act like a victim of Jodi's brainwashing tactics, acting as if she wasn't incredibly hands-on during the torturous abuse of her own flesh and blood. In fact, if you believe her journals, which why wouldn't you, she was the main perpetrator of the abuse.
I think putting the pieces together and just seeing, like, she knew she was lying the whole time. Like, and it's embarrassing, too, to, like, repeat it. It's like, oh, my gosh, how gullible was I? Oh, my gosh, how much power I gave this person, and I didn't see it. But when I realized, so she had, her attorney's name is Doug, Terry, and mine's Lamar. And Lamar, maybe a month into it, he's maybe not even that long, he's like, Jodi denies everything. She denies having anything to do with this. And I was shocked. I was like, what? And I'm still telling Lamar, like, all of the justifications and all of this, I'm talking like a criminal. I sound like a mad person. He was so patient with me. He would just look at me and, like, kind of dumbfounded, like I'd said 2 + 2 is 7, and I really believed it, and he would just stare at me. I'm like, what am I saying that's so off? And but that's because I really believed it. But then when I heard that Jodi was not talking like that, she was denying the whole thing, it told me she knew all along. It's like a little kid who doesn't know it's wrong to pee in their underwear. Like, they don't know. They're not embarrassed by it. It's like, oh, I was supposed to pee in the toilet? Oh, oops. But you get a 6-year-old, you get a 6-year-old who knows they're supposed to pee in the toilet and they're peeing down the heater vent. They're going to try to hide it. Mm-hmm. And that's when I realized she knew all along, and she's hiding it. And then I was like, crap, what am I done? And that's when things kind of started turning. I was like, she's not been honest. I didn't know she wasn't honest. I didn't know she would lie. And it's like, what else has she been lying about? Where else have I been deceived?
First of all, a little kid peeing their pants is not wrong. It's what little kids do until you as a parent show them a better way, like you teach them, right? Even at this point, you can feel Ruby's resentment and hatred for children because I truly feel she just hates kids. Her kids, someone else's kids, all kids, she hates them. You can hear it in the way she talks about them, like they're little lying manipulators who are going to be dishonest in order to hide what they know is wrong. Now, kids actually don't lie about things they do wrong. This is a little insight into the brain of a child, but kids, they don't know how to lie until they're trained to. They don't lie about things that they've done wrong because they don't know it's wrong until the adult's reaction teaches them that they'll be in trouble, right? So for instance, Bella, she went to school one day and she cut her bangs. And she came home and she proudly showed me her bangs. She did not know that cutting her own bangs at school probably wasn't the best thing. And if I'd reacted poorly and started yelling at her, now she knows in the future, I've got to hide things better. I can't be as honest and upfront with my mother because she reacts poorly. So for self-protection, for preservation, yes, kids do start lying. A kid lying to you about something they did wrong, though, says more about you as a parent than them about you as a child, especially if they're young, if they're the ages of 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Yeah, teenagers, they've already been programmed to lie and they are going out drinking and, sneaking out windows and meeting up with their boyfriends and stuff. So that's why they lie, because they don't want to get caught and they don't want to stop. But in general, young children, they don't start lying until you teach them with your reactions that they will get in trouble if they are honest with you. A child lying about something they did wrong, it shows that the parent has programmed this type of response in their child because your reaction to them being honest with you is scary and they would much rather avoid it. And honestly, what I'm hearing from Ruby is that she got arrested and went into jail and spent a few months behind bars thinking that what she and Jodi had done was all good, perfectly normal, perfectly reasonable, till she heard from her lawyer that Jodi was not towing the same line. And then suddenly Ruby realizes that it was all a lie. So even away from your brainwasher, not having the 4 brain cells that you call a brain being washed any further, you still thought you were in the right. And it took finding out that your partner in crime wasn't telling the same story for you to realize that hurting your own children was bad and wrong. That's kind of a problem, no? And Ruby isn't the only one who hates kids and thinks treating them like less than human is okay. Obviously, we know that Jodi is of the same mindset. And we have to talk about another person, a person we briefly touched on in our last video, Pam Bodtcher. Now, if you remember, the day that Ruby and Jodi got arrested, the police went looking for Ruby's 2 middle daughters, and they found them at the home of Connexion's president, Pam Bodtcher, in American Fork, Utah. We have body cam footage of Pam being questioned by police and DCFS, and listen to what she says.
Is there a reason that you went and picked her up today?
Yeah.
What was the reason you went and got her today?
She's going to come clean up my house.
She's going to come clean? Is that something that regularly happens?
Yeah, she comes and cleans, or she comes and cans. She comes and does weeds and stuff, and I have company coming tonight from
Costa Rica. That's DCFS.
Oh, okay, I was going to say, so one of my neighbors, that'd be embarrassing. Yeah. So my friend called me and she said, hey, I have a family emergency. I'm going to St. George.
In the first video that we did on Ruby and Jodi's situation months ago, we talked about a young woman named Jessie Hildebrandt, and this was Jodi's niece. Jessie came out after the arrests and talked about her abuse at the hands of Jodi. And Jessie also described Pam as one of Jodi's best friends and someone who would report on her to Jodi when Jessie was just an abused teenager. Now, Pam is very much a follower of Connexion's and their belief system, which I think is evidenced by how casually she tells these authority figures that she removed 2 minor children from school so they could clean her house because she had company coming over that night. And apparently from Pam's interviews, it looks like Ruby's daughters were at her place quite a bit doing chores and acting as underage and unpaid child laborers. And Pam acts like she doesn't really know much about Connexion's. She's like, well, it's about teaching life skills and learning how to be honest, responsible, and humble. Yo, these women do not know the meaning of any of those words. Honest, responsible, humble. Humble especially. There's not an ounce of humility between these three women. But never once does Pam tell the police or DCFS that she's the president of Connections, even when she was asked if Ruby was the one who started the program. And Pam did get kind of like weird. She was like, no, she didn't start it. She's just in it. She's just a part of it. Like, she probably wanted to say so badly, like, I started it. Me and Jodi started it. I'm the president. But then she was like, I'm trying to act like I really don't know what's going on here and that I have nothing to do with this. So let's just keep going with that. Now we're going to talk about Ruby Franke's personal handwritten journals, where she detailed the abuse that she subjected her kids to for months. Now, these pages are heavily redacted, but there's enough there to get a very big picture of what Russell and Eve went through. The entries start on May 21st, 2023, and at first, it just seems like Ruby is keeping track of appointments, kind of, but then on June 30th, 2023, Ruby writes, quote, R refused to do wall sits. He says he is done, end quote. On July 1st, Ruby writes that R, which is Russell, is to stay outside and sleep outside. He would only be allowed to come inside to use the bathroom and shower. On July 14th, Ruby wrote that Eve was refusing to work. She was screaming, and so she had to have her hair shaved off. On July 15th, Russell ran away around 1:15 a.m., and a note is made saying, quote, Ruby finds him at 3:14 a.m., and then another note stated, quote, Jodi drove to Arizona to find property, end quote. So it looks like Russell running away kind of gave Jodi and Ruby a little bit of a wake-up call to be like, wow, we're kind of out there in Utah, but we still have neighbors. We still have people that are too close for comfort. Time to find new places to abuse children. And then the longer entries start. And the first one is dated July 9th, 2023, which was a Sunday. Ruby wrote, quote, R turns 12 tomorrow. I never envisioned him being 12 and still pooping/peeing himself. Satanic choices lead to one becoming destitute, even in the most affluential homes, end quote. I'm pretty sure affluential's not a real word. Like, I think it's affluent. I don't think affluential is actually a real word. And that makes sense because throughout these journal entries, Ruby's consistently using terms where they do not apply to try to sound smart. And she misspells words like crazy. Like when she tries to write Tucson, like Tucson, Arizona, she writes Tuscan. Tuscan. And no, it's not an O instead of an A. There's an A there. She's writing Tuscan. And she just misspells things that, at her age, an adult should be able to spell, especially an adult who feels it's their place to tell every single person around her, including children, what's wrong with them and why they're stupid and why they're bad. You're stupid, Ruby. You're bad. On July 10th, 2023, Ruby wrote, quote, RF's birthday. He doesn't even know what month it is. E and R have been in so much deviant behavior, they won't control their bodily functions. They are both furors. Their selfish, sinful lifestyle is being intervened upon. I told R he emulates a snake. He slithers and sneaks around, looking for opportunities when no one is watching, and then he scurries away. If he wants to emulate the Savior, he needs to be 100% obedient with exactness. No wavering, no hiding. R lies, all the time. He's a compulsive liar. I never would have suspected. This entire experience is a shock to my system. I never would have expected the cold, dead heart R has. He's always been able to get what he wants, and now that he can't, he's furious. I told him if he divulged everything, he would automatically begin repenting. I told R that he needs God, and I invited him to fast and pray. R is in and out of possession. He's workable and calm for a bit and then angry and defiant the next. The only consistent thing about R is that he lies. E is better behaved with Jodi. She likes to think she can still manipulate me. I gave her a pixie haircut. All her long hair is gone. No more distracting with her hair. R told me he would rather have a glass of water than me as his mother. End quote. Good for him. Good for him. So do you believe the things that Jodi is literally telling her 12-year-old child, her 12-year-old son? He's a snake. He has a cold, dead heart. Telling your kid he's possessed by demons is bad enough, but telling your child that he's a snake with a cold, dead heart who compulsively lies about everything, and he's 12, and he's being abused, and he's literally being broken mentally emotionally, physically, every possible way. And she says these things to him. Like, electric chair is all I can say. So the following day, July 11th, Ruby writes, quote, "Big day for evil. E manipulates me. She won't scream when Jodi is around, but with me, she wails all night." Listen, this dumb bitch calls herself a mental health professional, a mental fitness coach. She can't even spell a simple word like whales right. She wrote WHAILS, which is not even a word. It's not like she wrote whales, like beluga whales. She just threw an H in there for no reason. Ruby continues on saying, E screamed, cried, and would hit her head on the tile floor. Today, Jodi confronted her. E admits to putting on a show for her mother. E says she wants to be pitiful. R was told to stand in the sun with his sun hat. He is defiant. No. I tell him a couple more times. R, or should I say his demon, stays in the shade. I push R into the sun. R comes back. I come back with a cactus poker. When I poke his back to get in the sun, R doesn't even flinch. I poke him on the neck. He's in a trance and doesn't appear to feel anything. Jodi taps him on the cheeks to wake him up. The devil doesn't like when you get your subject to agree to the truth. R, do you know I love you? Yes, ma'am. R, do you know J. Joe loves you? Yes, ma'am. Do you know the Savior loves you? Yes, ma'am. R wants out of his outcomes. After our talk, R stays in the shade. I take my old mop water and go to R. I show R the water. Then I pour the water on R. It's hot outside. It feels good, doesn't it? Yes. So the way she writes is absolutely, she writes like she's got 18 different personalities in her head, but she will start putting in dialogue between her and her children. So when she says, it feels good, doesn't it? She's asking him, Russell, it feels good, doesn't it? After she dumps dirty mop water on his head. And he responds, yes. Ruby continues. She says, quote, an hour later, J. Joe, and J. Joe is apparently what Ruby calls Jodi when she talks to the kids. J. Joe takes R on a little walk to the pool. She talks on how R has love twisted. If R likes something someone does, he calls it love. If he doesn't, he thinks it's not loving. J. Joe then pushed R into the pool. R swam to the side. J. Joe pulled him out. Feels good. Refreshing? Yes, ma'am. I went out for a couple hours later and asked if he wanted the pool again. Yes, ma'am. Will you let me push you in? R laughed and then tried not to act too excited. R cooled off and went back to his spot. I put my hands on his face. Okay, so the following is dialogue that Ruby wrote in her journal. So she says to Russell, have you ever heard someone talk underwater? Russell responds, yes, ma'am. And then Ruby says to her son, Russell, I know Russell is in there somewhere. I know deep down under all this anger, you can hear me. I may sound like I'm underwater with you, but hear me. I love you. And then she writes that Russell got teary. Then Ruby continues to write, saying, quote, then I put my hand tightly over his nose and mouth. I am coming to you in this water and putting my hands on your nose and mouth. The devil lies and says I'm hurting you, abusing you, but what am I really doing? And then Russell responds and says, you are putting oxygen on me to help me breathe. And then Ruby responds to Russell, yes, that's right. Ruby continues and says, quote, R looked like he wanted to beat me up this morning, and then he was intrigued and interested, and then 2 hours later he drinks water from the hose, steals water. R is compulsive. He feels no remorse for his choices. He shuts down and says he wants to go to jail. R says he worships the devil and has no interest in changing. And Ruby says that R is basically saying, I want the outcome of being changed, but I don't want to do the work that it requires. So she's telling him he's too lazy to get the demons out of him. And Ruby continues saying, R doesn't actually know what jail means. He has no comprehension of what throwing your life away means. You're about to, Ruby. You're about to. Ruby continues and says, he just wants the immediate gratification of sitting in an air-conditioned car ride to juvie. He wants stimulus. R is so back and forth. R stole water. He was angry and looked like he wanted to fist up. I put my hands on his shoulders and told him I love him. I told him he has no idea what he's doing, but I do. I can help him. I told him, give your demon friend a message for me. I will not rest. I will not stop. I will not leave. I will fight him until the day you die. That's scary. That's a little prophetic, right? She continues on and tells Russell, I have the power of God and he must obey. I beat Satan. I win. Then I looked in R's eyes and with the power and authority commanded, get out now, go. R immediately smiled, cried, slumped, and softened. He's gone. He left. This is hard to read. This is hard to read because Ruby is so horrible and cruel to these children. And she says like they're back and forth. They're lying. They're demons. They are lazy. They don't want to do work. They're exhausted. Yes, they want to sit in the air conditioning when it's hot outside. So do grown-ups. So does everybody. Yes, they would like to drink water when it's hot outside. Literally, who withholds food and water from their children and then gets mad when the child drinks water from a hose and says they stole the water? And remember, she's poking her son with, what did she call it, a cactus poker? What is that? I think she just meant like an actual cactus. I think she meant that she took a cactus and put it on her son's skin. And then they're throwing him in the pool. She's covering his mouth and nose and whispering in his ear, I love you. Like, what? This is horrible. This is cult shit. This is a child called it stuff happening right now. This is just, aside from the physical aspect of the abuse, the mental and emotional turmoil that would be caused in these kids from having the one person you love and trust who's supposed to take care of you do the exact opposite, but then tell you that she loves you at the same time. It's a clusterfuck, right? It is completely draining and just confusing. And then you end up as a person fracturing a little bit. And that's why they're going back and forth, because part of these kids wants to go along with what Ruby and Jodi are putting them through so that it ends. But they get frustrated. They can't take anymore. They mentally break and then they become angry. They become, like they're over it. They're like, no, I'm not going to do this anymore. They start standing up for themselves, which Ruby and Jodi hate that, right? That's disobedient. It's not them standing up for themselves. It's not them having the autonomy as human beings to say, this is my life and this is what I want. It's them being disobedient. It's them being demonically possessed. So Ruby continues on saying, quote, I took E and R on a car drive to the gas station. I told E that she was never going home. I showed her pictures of her on the swing under the big tree. She saw a girl who was hiding, who enjoyed tricks. I told her I saw a daughter of God with divine worth. E manipulated during the car drive, appeared to soften. I stopped the car and we all got out to view the sunset. I told E she needs to stop her fantasy. She's not innocent. She can become innocent, though, through repentance. Don't waste more time. R and E have been counting days. R did know yesterday was his birthday. E told me she figures they had been in here 8 weeks. I asked E if she felt like she had made progress over the 8 weeks. Yes. This is what Eve said. Eve said yes. And then Ruby says, I told her she was delusional. She has made no progress. She continues to lie and manipulate. Last night, her screaming and her head banging were evidence of no change. End quote. On July 12th, Ruby wrote, quote, took the kids on a 4-hour car ride. We stopped at Gunlock Lake and I shared my love for them. We watched a baby cow get loose and walk into the road in front of us. I made the analogy of the not-so-wise calf to them. I was keeping them safe when they wanted to run in the road. What? Oh my God, she's twisted. She's like, you see that cute little baby cow there walking in the road? Well, that's you. Okay, that baby cow's about to get hit by a car, but because of me, you're not going to get hit by a car. She is devious, twisted, evil. Ruby continues. She says, quote, we drove up to Vallejo. I bought a volcano pie. I told the kids the pie was to thank Jijo for her home care time. R appeared engaged. E was manipulative. This is the day E anticipates breaking her 2-day fast. When we got home to Jijo, I let R know that she has hardened her heart and will do one more day of fasting to invite her to humble. E flips out and begins ranting. She refuses to get up. She lies on the floor all day speaking dishonest chants. Because Jijo is on the phone with clients, I don't go in and match her level of aggression. Oh, you don't go in and match her level of aggression because somebody might hear you abusing your children? Because Jijo's on the phone with clients? What a piece of shit. Ruby continues, all day E makes rhymes about my mom starves me and calls it fasting. My mom won't lift 2 fingers and bring me food because all she does is lie in the bed and eat brownies. My mom says she is the most loving mom in the world, blah, blah, blah. If I can't ever go home, then what's the point in being obedient? So this is what Eve is saying. She's chanting this apparently. Ruby says she's making up rhymes, but obviously those things did not rhyme, so that's not what Eve was doing. But I love this, honestly, because it shows how resilient the human spirit is, even as a child. These children are going through the hardest and worst thing that they've ever been through, that the hardest and worst thing they probably ever have to go through. And Eve, she still has her spunk. She still has her spark. And she was always, on the YouTube channel, because I've had to watch so many Passengers videos, she was always kind of the sassy one. She always had this like streak of rebelliousness in her, which is great. We want that in our kids. We especially want that in our daughters. We want our daughters to not be people pleasers. We want our daughters to stand up for themselves, say what they want, lay boundaries out, tell people, I know that this is what you want, but this is what I want. And so I'm going to do what I want because this is my life and I have a say. We want that. We have enough women out here who were raised and conditioned to be people pleasers and put their own needs last and sacrifice their boundaries for the needs and desires of others. So I love that Eve is still, showing that she has her sassiness and her independent mind working, even though she's going through the most disgusting treatment at the hands of her own parent. Ruby continues on and says, quote, Jijo helped me intervene after work. Allowing lies to be spewed gives the devil a platform. Articulating lies reinforces possession. The longer the lies are allowed to be spewed, the longer the intervention needs to be. I cut more off E's head. We doused her with water in the dog wash. E said she wanted to run away. Jodi told E she has no idea what is waiting for her. End quote. Does it remind you of an abusive husband or an abusive partner where they're horrible to you and then you're like, you're horrible to me? And they're like, well, you should see what else is out there. You think you got it bad here? Well, go out there in the world and find out. Nobody's going to love you like I love you. So the next entry is from July 13th, and it says, quote, I may have forgotten to write this. On the 11th, I took R's face in my hands and spoke to him. I told him to send the demon a message for me. I will not give up. I will not leave. I'm going nowhere. Get out. R released the demon, and he has been very workable ever since. This morning, the 13th, R broke his fast with brown rice, lentils, black beans, and chicken and water. A hornet kept buzzing around his chicken. I told R to think about the hornet as Satan. Of course. The cow is Eve and Russell, and the hornet is Satan. Ruby loves her parables. She loves finding things in real life, in the world, and then attributing them to some situation which allows her to continue manipulating children. And so Ruby tells Russell, think about the hornet as Satan. Would you become pals with Satan? Would you sell your soul or chicken to a hornet? He will sting you in the end. R trapped the bee with his sun hat. That didn't even make any sense, honestly. Like, I didn't realize until I read it out loud, but would you sell your soul or chicken to a hornet? Like, I might sell my chicken to a hornet, actually. I don't think I would sell my soul to a hornet or anyone else, but if the hornet was hungry and had cash, yes, you can have some of my chicken. You're small. How much are you going to take? I'm still going to have plenty to eat. He will sting you in the end. Hornets don't necessarily just sting for no reason, right? But anyways, Ruby goes on to say, R trapped the bee with his sun hat. E broke her fast with cheesy potatoes, steak, water, oatmeal, and water. E is full of piss and vinegar. She is mad as a hornet. She doesn't call the shots. Oh, so now Eve is the hornet. Satan and Eve are both hornets. It's been about 90 minutes since R ate. I warned him that food would either energize him to truth or defiance. He's defiant again. He pooped his pants, and he's telling me no. His poop is too watery to be fasting. R admits to stealing water 3 times yesterday. R lies and feels no remorse. R is cheating. End quote. I might be wrong, but if you're fasting, doesn't that mean you eat or drink nothing but water for a certain period of time? Like, isn't water part of fasting? Because we know that humans can survive without food for several days, but we do need water, you know? We need water, like, every day if possible. Was Ruby withholding water from her children during these fasting periods? Were they not allowed to have food or water during the fasting periods? And she's sending them out into the hot desert and telling them to stand in the sun and poking them with cactuses? Or is it cacti? And did she actually write with a straight face that R had stolen water 3 times? Can you steal something that your body literally needs to continue operating? Or is this just called survival? Because water out of the hose is basically free. Like, I mean, I'm like trying to validate it or justify it in some way. Like, oh, he didn't steal it because it cost nothing. You should give your children water. That's it. I don't need to say anything else. The entry continues. Quote, these selfish children who desire only to take, lie, and attack have zero understanding of God's love for them. They don't know Jijo is selling her home, this priceless Snow Canyon gem, so she can purchase land where these two can work. Jijo has been looking for property with Soros cactus and is feeling more imminently the need to get these kids to open land. She is willing to consider less than ideal property for them. This is a spiritual matter. I can't in good faith leave you with these 2 gremlins. I won't do that. These are God's children. Sorrows don't matter when souls are on the line. So I believe that Ruby's trying to say that that's what Jodi said to her. I can't in good faith leave you with these 2 gremlins. And souls are more important than sorrow cactuses, because apparently Jodi likes these cactuses and she wanted to get them on her new property. But, you know, she was willing to sacrifice the cacti for the souls. Ruby continues. 1 hour later, we move quickly. Jodi and Jay are going on a road trip to look at property in Arizona. Ruby has some cash in the bank. If the property is right, we can move on financing immediately. We decided the escalation of the kids is not manageable here and now. R is not sitting, angry, defiant. E is lying on the floor. We will bring them in. R will clean up out in the desert as he has pooped himself. He will then stand/sit on the patio/shade. Now I'll see him from the kitchen. E, I will bring into the cool house and she can sit in the pantry. They will think they won. They will think they got what they wanted. They will relax. Then pop! We will drop them like hot potatoes out in the desert. Their new home. You are going to get exactly what you asked for. Oppositional force is required for growth, development, maturity. E and R have never experienced oppositional force. They are very weak-minded. It is infuriating to hear Ruby refer to her 9-year-old daughter and 12-year-old son as weak-minded, especially when her and her dumbass husband are sitting in front of the cops and talking on the phone, telling people how Jodi brainwashed them and took control of their lives before they even knew what hit them. Okay? Especially when freaking Kevin doesn't even know what emaciated means. Especially when Ruby couldn't win a 2nd grade spelling bee. Ruby, you're a grown-ass woman who could have walked out of Jodi's house at any time. At any time when you felt uncomfortable, like, oh, this woman's making me hurt my children, you could have been like, I'm out of here. You weren't a prisoner. Your kids were prisoners. They're kids, and they were forced to be at the mercy of the adults in the room. You're weak-minded, Ruby. Weak-minded and not too bright. Those 2 kids of yours, they're incredibly strong and brave. And the fact that they continue to push and fight back, even as you upped the intensity of their abuse, only proves this. So I'm not sure how your scumbag ass and your husband's scumbag ass were able to raise such independent, smart, brave, and courageous children. But you should have been proud of them. And instead you tried to break the things inside of them that made them strong and made them independent individuals. So the next page of the journal is titled Pattern, and it reads, quote, sending evil away in a possessed person is not a one-and-done deal, usually. These wicked spirits in E&R have been pals long before this life. How E and R got to come and get a body can only be explained in me not advocating to be their mother. This is not a conceited statement. God knew I would take my responsibility to mother seriously. Jodi volunteered to help. These two souls are very weak of mind. They are fools, truly. E said she would choose the devil over God. What arrogant spew! God is patient not to split her with a bolt of lightning. First of all, Ruby says, how did E and R get to come here and get bodies? And it bothers me because she's not saying the demons inside of E and R. She's calling her children, who she says are possessed by demons, E and R, and basically saying that the demons are named E and R. So she's looking at her children as complete demons, basically. And then she says, Eve should be split in half by a lightning bolt from God. I think that Ruby has her religions mixed up. That was Zeus who had the bolt of lightning. I mean, I guess that God could send a bolt of lightning down to split someone in half, but he doesn't do that often. Ruby continues and says, you do not tempt God who controls your very breath. The disdain and hatred they have for God is beyond my ability to describe. They didn't have disdain and hatred for God. They have disdain and hatred for their mother, Ruby. That is who those kids hated. Ruby continues and says, my spirit is offended. I shudder to think I would never have seen this had I not pushed on them. She also spells shudder with 2 T's instead of 2 D's, but what else is new? Holding boundaries will show you how much possession a soul has. The more boundaries, the more the soul will reveal itself. Trial will reveal soul because of the inherent limits built into tribulation. Back to sending evil away, articulating. Truth drives evil away. This is a powerful intervention for the possessed. Even if you can start by agreeing to something truthful. Eve, you are a daughter of God, true? Yes, ma'am. Principle, following up on articulating a desire for evil to leave with a demonstration of obedience is powerful. Demonstrating a willingness to follow truth is a pattern the Savior used in his interactions. Go sell all you have and follow me. Go sin no more. Go wash 7 times. Go and tell no one. Go and tell the city. Go and preach my gospel. Go feed my sheep. What is she talking about? She's like, go and tell no one. Go and tell the whole city. Go feed my sheep. What? This is bananas. And once again, remember, Ruby says she has no mental health issues and she's going to hire somebody to prove it. She has mental health issues. She's talking in circles and not making any sense. She's not making any sense. She goes on to say, if you can engage a weak-minded soul in physical activity of obedience, you can begin to break the bond Satan made with the weak. Physically stop the acting out behaviors and begin physically doing good farm work. Lifting boxes, exerting energy, exercises, jump rope, milking cows, weeding a garden, digging trenches. Satan cannot be where there is good. I thought Ruby said that Satan's been after her for a while, but he can't be where there's good. So are you not good? Because he's been hanging around for years with you, apparently according to you. So are you not good? Ruby continues and says, quote, begin doing/sweating for good. Heavy physical intensity captures your attention. The problem for E and R is the hard labor is all, this is redacted, for the sake of lifting does not have meaning or do good. We need property where a ranch can be built. Good can be done. Outcomes of prosperous choices can be seen, experienced, and felt. And the kids need a good kick from a horse and a cactus to run into. They need natural outcomes. I asked R what he was thinking about since he was sitting in the shade and had what he wanted. R answered, what I want. And then Ruby says to Russell, what do you want? And Russell responds, more different foods and a soft bed. And then Ruby says, why don't you ask Satan? Do you think Satan will give you these things? And Russell says, no. And Ruby says, why not? And Russell says, because he doesn't have the power. And Ruby says, why would you serve a God who has no power to give you your desires? Dumb. She writes dumb, ! in the journal after she's calling her son dumb. And then R is silent after this. And Ruby continues on saying, E had another episode with demons. She gives herself to them. She agreed to stop being deceptive with her facial expressions and crying and whining. Whining is the devil's voice. Whining is always a demon. E's hurt facial expressions blame me for her misery. It is E at the center of her misery. Her face is deceptive. After E did stairs, she sat on the park bench looking at the mountain views. She was told to sit and be still and eat her dinner. Carrots, hummus, grilled cheese, water. E, in a power play, brought her empty plate to the door and then removed her sun hat. In a power play, she brought her plate to the door so you could clean it? That's a power play? July 14th, 2023. E woke up. I reminded her that if she whined, cried, or squinted her eyes at me or soured her face, I would be buzzing her hair. If she's going to act sick, she can look sick. She agreed with a smile. I told her because she didn't listen the night before, she would do 2 sets of boxes/stairs with a 5-minute break. She did the first set, easily and agreeably. After 5 minutes of her rest, she began whimpering. When she got to the bottom of the stairs, she slipped and dropped the box. I put her in the dog wash and shaved her head. Then back to the boxes. I told E, and she said, yes, ma'am, with tears. And then Ruby says to Eve, it's heavier than boxes, right? And E says, yes, ma'am. And Ruby says to her daughter, I can help you find relief. You have told so many lies about me that you refuse to be obedient. Why do you keep being buddies with Satan? And then, according to Ruby, Eve responded, I don't want to work. And Ruby told her, don't you see it's because you follow Satan that you keep doing boxes? If you were humble, you would be inside making pancakes with me. E agreed to sit on the park bench and think about her choices. I made it very clear if she were to move, get up, fidget, talk, take her hat off, she would go back to her work. E agreed eagerly. She promised to be obedient. After an hour on the bench, E began moving and looking around. I pulled her into the house and gave her more boxes. So your 9-year-old daughter sat on a bench still, completely still for an hour, and then she had to move? I mean, do you know a 9-year-old that can sit still for an hour? The fact that Eve was able to sit still for an hour shows how scared she was of her mother. But eventually, yes, you have to move. And so now she's going to be punished for sitting still for an hour and then moving. So now Ruby talks about Russell. And Ruby says to Russell, do you like sleeping on the hard ground? I sleep in a soft bed. And Russell responds to her, I slept really well, which I love this for him once again. And so Ruby says to Russell, you are mean. Do you enjoy being mean? And Russell responds, yes, ma'am. Of course, when you're being abused horribly and terribly, yeah, there's a little bit of a thrill in kind of being mean back to the person who's hurting you. Of course, it's human. And so Russell's like, yeah, man, I like being mean to you. I love it. It's the only thrill I get these days. And so then Ruby says to her son, her 12-year-old son, do you expect me to feed you? And Russell responds, yes. And Ruby writes, quote, I got big over him. That's what she said. And then Ruby responds to Russell, but she writes in her journal that she got big over him before she responded. And I believe that means probably she stood up, intimidating him with her body, which she is bigger than him. And then she said to Russell, I will feed R. I will not feed a demon. So I will check on you in a bit. And if you want food, then be prepared to tell the truth about your behaviors. Tell the truth of who I am. An hour later, Ruby goes to Russell and she says, are you ready? And Russell says, no, ma'am. And Ruby says, so you would rather have no food and worship the devil? And Russell says, yes, ma'am. And I mean, if I'm a kid at this point and I've kind of been, taught about God and the devil all my life, at this point, I might be thinking, well, God appears to have abandoned me. And my mom seems really scared of the devil. So yeah, I would absolutely rather have the devil hop up here and help me and smite her ass than, God, because God doesn't care. God's allowing this to happen to me. So Ruby continues on with this journal entry and says, E does first set of boxes decently, 10-minute break. E upset to do boxes, gets them done, sits on park bench 1 minute and then picks J. Joe's blossoms off plant. Defiant, more boxes. She refuses, goes to sleep on the basement floor. R, stand up. Stop picking your nose. The kids both pick their noses until they bleed. Distraction. Me, are you happy? R, no. Me, following Satan doesn't make you happy? Shocker. So Satan can't feed you? Who is supposed to feed you? Russell responds to this, God. And then Ruby says, and Russell responds, Christ. And then Ruby says, this is a game you play. Who brings you food? right? She wants Russell to say, you give me food. You bring me food. He's like, God and Jesus bring me food. Maybe he is playing a little bit of a game with her, but she deserves it. And so then Russell finally says, you bring me food, Mom. Yay for you. And then Ruby says to him, you want to leave the demons? And she claims, Russell responds to her, I don't want to humble. I don't want to humble. He doesn't want to be humble. Ruby continues and says, I told R I wanted to give him dinner with chicken. He needs to acknowledge his behaviors. He tells me he is missing his opportunity to repent. This is not acknowledging his behaviors. I tell R he is treating me and Jijo the way he believes he really deserves to be treated. Maybe you're treating your kids in the way that you believe you deserve to be treated. But Ruby continues and says, I bring him dinner of brown rice, beans, lentils, and water. He takes the bowl and begins eating. I say, no, thank you. Are you going to acknowledge the woman you've been abusing who just brought you dinner? Could you imagine being this kid and know you're being abused and know that this person's being terrible to you, and then your abuser, I mean, I can actually imagine it. Your abuser tells you that you're abusing them. I can imagine it. It's awful. And then this is what Russell responds, right? He says, I would say thank you, but I wouldn't really mean it. Get her. Get her. You want honesty, Ruby? You want honesty? There's your honesty. There's your honesty. So Ruby writes, quote, with that, I reached down and grabbed his dinner and water and said, wow, wow. R tried going back on what he said with some explanation, and I stopped him. I will not talk with a demon. Your soul is damned, and I will not hear your damnable words. Straight to bed. E had started walking stairs without a box. She's now slipping and falling on purpose. Do you think that she's not slipping and falling on purpose? Do you think she's slipping and falling because she's weak, because you're not feeding her, because she's sleeping on a basement floor? Do you think that's why she's slipping and falling? Because she's 9 years old and you're having her do hard manual labor and she's tired and you don't even give her water? Ruby continues and says, when E was outside today and it was hot, she acted like she was dying. So pitiful. I told her, E, the heat in hell is so much hotter and God is going to burn the wicked. So either get used to it or start changing. And Ruby says that Eve responded to her and told her, I don't really believe that's actually going to happen. So basically Eve was like, yeah, I know you keep threatening me with this, but I don't believe you. I don't believe in God and the devil and hell and heaven. I don't believe in anything right now. I am literally like an empty shell because of what you've done to me. So Ruby continues and says, kids are all in bed. E ate mashed potatoes, turkey, and milk. J. Joe and Jay are looking at RV trailers. These kids have no idea the sacrifice being made for them or Jesus' sacrifice already made. July 15th, 2023. There are days and nights that reveal God's most poignant mercies and miracles. Last night, God gave me a miracle I absolutely will never, ever forget. I know when God gives you an errand and you do the best you can to fulfill it, He will protect you. I went to bed around 12:10 a.m. E on the floor next to my bed, R on the patio outside my sliding glass window. Oh man, just writing this, I am shaking. If Pam hadn't volunteered to take A to American Fork for her ACT test, then I would not have been here, and my life and Jodi's and my family's would be forever different. At 2:45 a.m., I woke straight up out of bed. Straight up! I couldn't see R. He was gone. I opened the sliding glass door, and there was no sign of him. He did leave an arrangement of rocks and letters and words. He wrote me a message. Too scared. I forgot how to read. I ran to Jodi's room and woke her up. She came out with me. The message said in pebbles, jail. I will call you when I get there. Jay and I scoured the house and yard. Jodi got flashlights. Jodi and Jay took her car and I got up and went in mine. Oh God, oh Father, we need a miracle. We need your help now. Send the hosts of heaven. Show us where R is. Please, please, Father, answer now. I've done everything you've asked. Protect me. Protect Jodi. Protect us. Protect us. Yo, she's so dramatic. I liked when she said she was too scared so she couldn't read the message that R had left her in stones. Too scared, she forgot how to read. You definitely forgot how to spell long ago, okay? So, and now she's just like, out driving, looking for her runaway son because God forbid he should get to anybody and tell them what you've been doing to him, which makes me feel that you knew it was wrong. And she's over here like driving through the streets. Protect us, God. Protect us. Protect me. Protect Jodi. What about Russell? What about Eve? What about your kids in general? Who's protecting them but God? Protect me and Jodi. Tell me where to go. And apparently, according to Ruby, she heard in her head a voice say, go right. And Ruby writes, quote, I went left. I'm sorry, she really did. She claims she heard a voice in her head that says, go right. And then she immediately afterward writes, I went left. and all the way to the roundabout on the main street to rule it out and make sure he hadn't reached the main road yet. No sign of R. I turn back and go down the dip and then turn right. Father, 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 hear me now. I go right, then right again. This road doesn't look familiar. I speed up to cover as much road as I can, racing the sun, racing the devil. Then I see R walking on the left side of the road. I call Jodi to let her know. I turn the car around and stop. I get out of the car. R is shocked to see me. Get in the car. You're shocked to see me? R nods his head and gets in. Blank in the back, me and R in the front. Blank is just redacted. I don't know who's in the back. 2:45, I woke up. 3:08, we leave in cars. 3:14 a.m., I called Jodi with R. The sun started lighting the roads just an hour and a half later. The devil wants me in prison, my children dead. I meet Jodi back home. We deliberate in the car while L and E go back to bed. R stands in the garage where we can see him. He has zero remorse, zero fear, zero expression. He's cold, calloused, and hard, angry he isn't calling the shots. Jodi and I agreed to buy ourselves more time until we have more of an environment conducive to an intervention. We need land. The Spirit told Jodi very clearly, don't let those kids' choices ruin your life. We have work to do. You can force repentance. To de-escalate the situation, I brought R into the house. I tied a rope to my feet and him, to my waist and his. R will now sleep in a soft bed with me. Okay, so the Spirit told Jodi Hildebrandt, don't let these kids' decisions ruin your life. The kids' decisions of running away so that they wouldn't be hurt anymore. And to de-escalate the situation, Ruby ties her son to her like a prisoner. But he does get to sleep in a bed. So that's more than he deserves, right? Ruby continues writing. 7 a.m., R slept. The devil got a bed. Jodi taught exaggeration in class. Jay loaded the cooler. I put the kids in my car and took a drive. 8 a.m., a man comes to look at Jodi's house. 8:30 a.m., Jodi and I meet at the Chitwitz gas station. E and Jay and Jodi take off to Tuscan. Pretty sure she means Tucson. I drive back to the house with R. He comes in the house. He doesn't leave my sight. I feed him chicken, rice, lentils, beans, but add a glass of milk. He sits at the counter and eats. He got what he wanted. I gave him the book Theophrastus's Characters. He gets a pen in his journal. He takes notes. To the onlooker, he appears to be a well-behaved, studious young man. And wouldn't I be thrilled? My son who wanted to run away, now by my side reading and writing, wouldn't I be relieved? No. I now know in order to keep my son, I will need to put him back under sedation. I unhooked him from all the bells and whistles and asked him to breathe and thrive on his own, and he went into arrest and stress. Back to sedation we go. The demon is still here, and I purposefully put R back into a slumber. Hibernate. To watch R go into the awful state of compliance, knowing the demons he harbors in his heart, is so sick. Like stitching up a patient, knowing you didn't get all the cancer out, and knowing it's only a matter of time before your patient keels over. R and E do not want to repent. They hate God per their own behaviors and words. I now see how perfectly reasonable people walk around hating God and worshiping the devil, yet they appear like good old Joes, good guys. There is a soul-killing infection in my child, and my hand is forced to not remove the infection. Agency does not allow me to rid the infection. R and E like the infection. It is so sick. 8:18 p.m. Just over 12 hours after finding R, teaching class, and leaving, Jodi sent me a text. I found the land. The devil does not want us to take R and E out of society. He did not want Jodi finding this property. He wanted Jodi and I down at the police station at 8:18 p.m., not discovering a place to bring her intervention to his entanglement of my children. Oh, how good the Lord is to those who risk everything to follow him and bring others to him. The hosts of heaven are on our side. My children will never know the sacrifices and lives put on the line to offer a chance for their salvation. R can only think that he likes the taste of milk and reading again. July 16th, 2023. Last night, I tied myself to R for the full night of sleep, 10 p.m. until 7 a.m., no interruptions. R showers while I watch. I shower while R is in the closet. I can see the closet door as I shower. R eats chicken, rice, beans, lentils with cheese on a corn tortilla. 3 sets of 10 push-ups, reads Theophrastus. Jodi is on her way home. E spent the ride laying down with her face facing the back of the seat. She doesn't know where they went or why. One might ask, as I myself have, what if we had taken this slower? Would the children have been on board if we hadn't boundaried them so quickly and so clearly? What if instead of a full day of box carrying, we would have done an hour and breaks and reading and then back to boxes? My answer is, well, yes, the kids would have complied. but they would not be repenting, and they would have been given the impression they were repenting. They needed things to get hard fast, intense, shocking change, immediate discomfort, stress to their systems. Why? Because they divulged their secrets. They could have confessed in truth, taking personal responsibility for the discomfort they were causing. If we had changed the environment of the kids slowly and more reasonably or comfortably, we would have allowed the dumb hypnosis and sleep to stay over the child. We needed to wake the child up to the state of reality, show them where they really are, the pit of hell. Oh yeah, they know. They know they're in the pit of hell, Ruby. They know. They are absolutely in the pit of hell. You're 100% right, and they know. The hope was that they would choose to go to God for forgiveness, to admit their awful state. Instead, they hid. They wanted to lie to themselves that what they did wasn't that bad, that they were the victims, that me and Jodi are the persecutors, that burning in hell isn't real, that God isn't real, and that God doesn't even exist. They deny the power of God. I told R today that he is sedating his choices to do wickedly. I don't want that anymore, R says to his mother, Ruby. My response, which is Ruby's response, yes, you do. You stood alone with only you and your choices, and you literally would stand it. You ran away. You refused to sit/stand with your choices, and now you are in the house with milk, air conditioning, and a book, and you quite like it, don't you? R responds, yes, ma'am. Ruby says to him, if you really didn't want evil anymore, you would say, Mom, thanks for the book, but I want to do boxes today, or I want to stand with my choices. You won't do that, will you? Russell says, no, ma'am. And then Ruby says, see, I want to make it clear to you. You have not made any shifting or change. You are damning your soul. She then writes, R goes back to writing and says, yes, ma'am. Weak-minded, undisciplined brat. Not to myself. I never clearly saw the devil and wickedness until recently because I didn't see evil clearly. I didn't combat him. I padded evil and placated wickedness. My love of God was sincere, but assumed others' love for God was sincere as well. I was deceived. July 19th, 2023. To begin a separation from evil towards God, all the darkness needs exposed to the light. And once the lies and sins is revealed, the body must engage in good work. And the good work needs to be painful. Otherwise, the service becomes another feel-good distraction. A day of fasting and prayer for me after learning my children have become spawns of Satan. R has been out of control. P, poop, lie, steal, run away. E, crying, wailing. You could not know what this has been like unless you were here. Jodi and I took E out to the desert. She refused to stay quiet and would scream and scream. Jodi found a reservation cemetery. She went out in the heat barefoot. E still tried to run. She screamed for another family, water, food, care, love. A manipulative plug. So what Ruby's saying here is E was forced to go into the heat in this graveyard or the cemetery, barefoot. And she still tried to run, and she screamed for another family, for water, for food, for care, for love. And then Ruby says, manipulative plug. Do you want to kick Ruby in the face really hard? Because I do. Like with steel-toed boots. Really hard. Really hard. Ruby continues. After a couple hours of screaming and speaking nonsense, E finally laid down in the road. Quiet. We took her home. We took E and R out, and Jay the next day. E and R barefoot to increase the discomfort and decrease the running away. The task at hand was to weed the cemetery. Huge sagebrush, pokies, thorns, broken glass, garbages overfull. We spent a couple of hours filling black bags in Gijo's truck bed. The kids began to mellow out a bit. R looked for shade and cheating. We went out the next day and again today, 5 hours of weed pulling. R finally started getting the hang of it. This is getting easier. I feel like I'm getting stronger. I want to pull the weed out of my heart. What am I doing with my life? I don't want to live like this anymore. According to Ruby, that's what Russell said to her. And Ruby continues and says, all children need this experience of pulling obnoxious weeds, sweating in the sun, working while thirsty, and knowing what doing an anonymous act of service feels like. They are each beginning to see how nice the cemetery looks after days of their hard work. Yesterday, R was devious, and he put his head into the toilet. He said he was hot and wanted to cool off. Jodi and I reflected how disgusting and deviant that is. It's a problem that R has no problem being gross. Maybe if you didn't starve him and not give him water and make him spend hours and hours and hours and hours and hours in the desert with no water, he wouldn't put his head in a toilet. The fact that he had to put his head in a toilet says more about you than it does about him. But literally, this woman is abusing her children and then calling them dumb, gross, demons. Like trying to make them have no respect or love or kindness for themselves. July 25th, 2023, 7 to 8:30 a.m. women's group, 8:30 a.m. Ruby takes E, R, and J to the cemetery. Each child is given a bag to pick up broken glass and weeds. We work for about 15 minutes and a red vehicle with a woman, and then in parentheses, Ruby writes Indian, shows up. She sits and watches us for about 15 minutes, taking pictures or video. I tell the kids to stay right by me and keep their faces from being pictured. We continue to pull weeds. The woman gets out of her vehicle and walks towards me. What are you doing here? You don't belong here. This isn't your land. You are trespassing. I tell her I am weeding. She tells me, how would you feel if I came and poked around your cemetery? What are you stealing? Me. Nothing. We are weeding, picking up trash. She wants to know what's in the bags. I say weeds and broken glass. You can see for yourself. She tells me to leave the bags and get off her land. It's not good enough for you to come and take all our land and now you want more? What you have isn't good enough? You have to come take our cemeteries too? What's wrong with you? You were not raised right. So much disrespect. I told her, I do not mean any disrespect. I'm honoring your people. I'm offering. She would not let me get any words in. I collect my children and walk to the car. She yells at the kids that they will grow up to be just like their mother, white and full of privilege. Mind your business. Get out. I'm filing a police report. I tell the kids to get in the car and she wants me to wait so she can get a good photo of us in the license plate. I don't think so. We drive off as she stumbles to get her camera app up. Once again, Ruby, it would be fumbles because she uses her phone with her hands. Fumbles, stumbles is something you do with your feet. You ignorant fool, Ruby Franke. So I don't believe that this happened. I believe somebody was there taking pictures because we have a picture of these kids in the cemetery with no shoes on and no socks on when it was very, very hot. But I don't think that this woman was like yelling at the kids like, you're going to grow up to be white and entitled just like your mother, or being like, get off our land, you have to steal our cemeteries, leave those bags of broken glass, leave them, what are you stealing? You know, I don't believe that happened. I think Ruby is a dramatic person who thinks she has some writing or storytelling ability, which clearly she does not, because this is, once again, a cluster. I'm trying to make sense of it. I think she just exaggerates and lies and makes things up to make herself look like this honorable, good person, and everybody else is just horrible and in distortion. Ruby continues and says, this woman was projecting all her anger and aggression onto me. She told me I was walking around acting like I owned a place, when that is exactly what she was doing. She wasn't raised right. She was disrespectful. We leave and I talk to E and R about how this woman was attacking us with her distortion. A couple days ago, we met a woman who thanked us for helping keep the graveyard clean, and now this woman tells us we are aggressive when she really is the aggressor. I told the kids, this is exactly what they are doing. I'm helping them and they mock and reject my help. God sent me to help them repent and they turn me away. The kids seemed a bit affected because they are so numb. I don't know how long it will hold. She knows they're numb, but she thinks they're numb because they won't repent when they're really just disassociating so that they can leave their bodies and not have to face the reality that they currently reside in. Ruby continues and says, R is very emotional, E not so much. She is seeing and hearing evil. I told her that she invited evil. It's her chance to now send them away. You created this, E. The good news is, because you created this, you can destroy this. Send them away. August 1st, 2023. Jay and Jodi went to Tuscan today to look at the property of 500 acres. E and R are both defiant and unwilling to soften. E this week perpetually screamed outside. Jodi and I accommodated her and took her to Hellhole Road. Yes, there is such a road on your way to Vegas. She was to run on the dirt road. She ran for a bit and then started manipulating. I told her to run up an incline on a hillside, touch a tree and return, 100 yards max. She threw herself into a tree. Jodi pulled her out, breaking her flip-flops. After an hour of E jumping in bushes, we get in the truck to find a cactus. E walked right up to the cactus and threw herself into the middle of it. It was unhuman. She acted like it didn't hurt at all. She cuddled right in. I watched her press her foot up against a cactus ear. I watched with my mouth open. She is so numb. Once again, did Eve throw herself into the cactus or did you throw her into the cactus? And if Eve did throw herself into the cactus, then she probably was like, well, nothing can hurt more than what's already happening to me from my own mother. Ruby continues, after being cozy with the cactus, real cute, Ruby, real cute, E got up and spoke with Jodi for about 10 minutes. Jodi and E walked to the truck and I rolled down the window. E said, may I have permission to speak? Ruby answers, yes. And E says, can I have another chance at running the hill? And Ruby says, yes. So we got in the truck and drive to the hill. E gets out and comes to my window. Mother, what would you like me to do? I instructed her to run to the dead tree and then come back. E replied, I would rather jump into a cactus. What evil, what deception! This girl would choose to be shot and die than to humble and do what she is told. Do you see what I mean when I said last video that I believe if Russell hadn't gotten away and gotten help, Eve and Russell would be dead? Ruby's made multiple references to them being dead, her own children being dead. She says Eve would rather be shot and die than to humble. And I guarantee you, neither Eve or Russell would have ever humbled to the extent that would have been good enough for Ruby and Jodi. And so the inevitable conclusion, once they got them out to all that land, 500 acres in Arizona, in Tuscan, they would have been murdered and buried in the desert, and nobody would have ever known what happened to them. So Ruby continues and says, there is no pain point where she will turn. The next day, July 30th, we put E in the closet and contemplate what to do. She screams much of the day. She doesn't get water if she screams. She refuses to eat. July 31st, 2023, Jodi wakes up from a dream. God lets her know we have done everything we can to get E attention. Okay, so this is what Ruby claims God told Jodi. God told Jodi, quote, don't continue these physical interventions. They will only bring resentment. E is angry about her feet. Dress her wounds and leave her to me. This intervention gives the opportunity for E to soften and see that we aren't hurting her. So God basically was like, hey, maybe you should stop beating up on your kids because they're going to resent you, you know? And then Jodi and Ruby are like, what a novel idea. So Ruby writes that Jodi cleansed Eve's heels and the hydrogen peroxide didn't sting because E is numb to it. The spirit was very strong as Julie and I witnessed Jodi cleaning what didn't deserve to be cleaned. Okay, so this is the first time I've seen the name Julie in these journals. And usually the names are redacted and just put with their first initial, but many times in this journal, Eve's name was not redacted and it said Eve, and Russell's name wasn't redacted and it said Russell, and you can even hear their names being said on the jailhouse phone calls. But the few times that this J person was mentioned, they were mentioned with an initial, the letter J, and not the name. So now who is Julie? Who is Julie? Okay, so the only Julie I can see that is connected to Ruby Franke is her sister, Ruby's sister, Julie. I don't know. I don't know if the J in these journals is referring to this Julie, but if anybody knows who this Julie is, let me know, because I know a lot of you out there are really on this case and you've kind of gotten a good roster for who everybody is, so let me know. After dressing the wounds, Jodi carried her back to the closet. E did scream and sulk and ask for water. I gave her lunch, leftovers over several meals she wouldn't eat, and she finally ate. I gave her water and then the scriptures. This is the first opportunity to have reading material since coming to Jodi's. And then Ruby writes that she says to Eve, when you see God, he will judge you out of those books. Did you honor your mother? No. Did you keep his commandments? No. Did you repent? No. You are in big trouble. You better get really familiar with what's in here. That's what Ruby says to this child, this innocent child. Ruby, if you truly do believe in God and heaven and hell and the devil, you're in big trouble. You better get real familiar with what's in there. Ruby continues and says, R's feet are swollen from standing. He is angry. Nobody cares. I told him he is acting like a man having a heart attack and gets his feelings hurt because nobody cares about the sliver in his finger. When your soul is dying, nobody cares about your feet. August 2nd, 2023, Jodi and Jay are still away. E is distracted by being in the house, getting socks, being held and carried, and out of the elements. She reads her Bible. She ate her beans and rice and chicken. She is quiet. R sat outside yesterday and didn't manipulate. I asked R why he didn't manipulate yesterday. He said, because he wanted to change. I said, no, that's not true. You didn't manipulate because you weren't uncomfortable. You weren't hot. Today, R is standing outside in the patio by the room. It's raining. The rain is doing what? Ruby asks Russell, and Russell responds, washing what it touches, the rocks. And then Ruby says to Russell, yes, you desecrated those rocks, and the rain is cleaning them. Let it clean you too. Ruby is telling Russell that he desecrated the rocks by making a message to her in the rocks. Now, let me be very clear here. These kids, they don't know what's hitting them right now. Sometimes they're getting beat, poked with cactuses, called dumb, called evil, called, gross. And sometimes they're getting small kindnesses, like socks, being allowed to be inside in the air conditioning, being allowed to have a Bible to read. And they don't know what's happening because it's very, Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde. This is the worst type of abuse because the same person who causes your pain is the same person you then turn to comfort you from the pain that they caused. It will literally drive you to a place where you no longer know yourself, you no longer know what you want, you no longer know what is reality, you don't know which way is up. Cults do this. And Russell, when he ran away, he had an opportunity to run away that night in July. And instead of just getting up and going, he still took the time to, let his mother know where he was going and that he was leaving. Like, he still took the time to leave her a message. And this is very much like Stockholm Syndrome, right? He still loves her. They still love their mother. They're angry. They're confused. They don't know why she's hurting them. They don't know why she's doing this to them, but they still love her. And they still don't want to just abandon her without telling her where they're going. It's really sad. It's really sad. So then Ruby goes on to say, R pooped himself. He is angry. August 6th, 2023. R's rage comes out as he can't have what he wants, which is to serve the devil, a.k.a. have no responsibility and have me, mom, tout on him, coddle him. He wants both. Feed me, hug me, be tender with me, shower me in praise and affection, and let me lie to you and abuse you. Today he raged for hours. Fuck you, at least 50 times. So Ruby claims that Russell told her, I'm not going to lie anymore. I'm never going to change. Take me to jail where I belong. And then Ruby writes August 7th, 2023, blank will come start fixing the basement so Jodi can sell her home. This is great news. Only R is yelling obscenities. Jodi asked R, what are you going to say when you see God? Fuck you? R answered, sure. Blank canceled. This gave us a full day for blank. At the end of the day, he was docile, compliant. E cried today, compliant. August 8th, 2023. R is very defiant. I found his fingers poopy. He keeps pooping/peeing his pants. Within 5 minutes of him going to the bathroom, he went in his pants. Tried hiding it from me. Later, the spirit told me to ask him questions. I asked them from an assumption position. The following paragraphs are then redacted, by the way, so we don't really know everything that she asked him from an assumption position, but on August 9th, 2023, Ruby writes that she says to Russell, you keep saying you are unwilling to do uncomfortable things, but I watched you continuously do uncomfortable things the devil tells you to do. You would rather be uncomfortable than obedient. This isn't really about being uncomfortable. This is about adamantly refusing obedience. You would rather be uncomfortable than obedient. Is that true? And Russell responds, yes, ma'am. And so then Ruby says to Russell, when did you sell your soul to the devil? And Russell says to her, 2 or 3. And then Ruby asks Russell, did he come to you or you to him? And Russell says, he came to me. And then Ruby says to Russell, and what is he giving you in exchange for your soul? Money, fame, strength, a person? And Russell responds, nothing. And Ruby writes, I tell R he can still keep his soul. He can have a life. I told him to think about why he wants to be obedient to a devil who offers nothing in exchange for everything. R becomes aggressive and destructive. He starts banging and hitting doors. I went in and kicked him. Knock this off. R continues to be destructive and violent. Remember when Franke said that he and Ruby went to Jodi's home in Ivans because she said she was being stalked by shadow figures, and Kevin claimed he could hear things banging in different rooms when no one else was home? Maybe the bangings he heard were some other kids being trapped in Jodi's prison camp, right? Because, yes, eventually Russell and Eve are going to get so frustrated, so despondent and hopeless that they're going to start acting out, hitting things like to hurt themselves at that point. The journal entry continues, and Ruby says, quote, I put on a pair of boots. I went in and kicked him again. You want me to stop? What are you getting from Satan when he tells you to kick the door, huh? Nothing but more pain. You want me to help you? Russell says, yes. And Ruby responds, no. Ruby then says to Russell, you want me to feed you? And Russell says, yes. And Ruby says, no. You want me to shower and provide for you? And Russell says, yes. And Ruby says, no. You want to serve the devil and fight me and destroy all that I provide and then expect me to give to you? Go ask the devil to help you. Go ask the devil to feed you. I left. R was quiet, contained in the closet. I did leave him yelling. I get that you're rageful. I get that you're angry. You should be. But you've got to aim that anger in the correct direction. You keep aiming it at me, and I'm trying to help you get your life back. Get angry and denounce Satan. When I left, R was quiet for a bit and then started yelling, "Satan, a big lying piece of baloney!" He continued raging and yelling and crying, "I believed you, and what you give me, nothing but pain. You lie, and I've believed you. I'll admit it. I've been a fool to follow you, but no more. It's not too late. I can turn my life around. Get lost, get lost. I can get my life back through obedience." Kind of sounds like Ruby when she was talking about being under Jodi's spell and feeling like a fool for believing Jodi. Is this sincere? Ruby wants to know. Is R's turnaround, his rantings at the devil in the closet, are they sincere? Ruby says his actions are going to show. She also says that R is manipulating his hand. He wet his pants. And she says to Russell, you cannot manipulate your way out of pain. The only way out of pain is to humble yourself. You need to pray and show God how you have desecrated your precious body, how you misuse your body. Beg him to help you. And apparently, according to Ruby, Russell says to her, I've been such a fool. I don't want to make these choices anymore. Please hear me, God. I won't live this way anymore. My life is crappy. It doesn't have to be this way. Obedience is the way. I've desecrated my soul. I know I can change. I still have a chance. My chance is getting smaller and smaller. I'm not going to choose this anymore. I'm not going to make myself a fool anymore. I've made myself such a fool. I believed all those lies, and all they bring me is pain, God. I've made a choice to be so idiotic. I've been so aggressive, so vile, so mean. God, please hear me in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen. I tend to think that it was real and it was sincere, and Russell was at that point like, well, I deserve this. My mother, who loves me, is telling me I deserve this, and so I must. August 10th, 2023, Jodi and Jay are still in Arizona. Tuscan. They should be back tonight. I am watching R in the closet and E on the back patio. It's warm outside and raining. I told E the rain is cleaning the rocks from dirt and from R's pee. I told her to feel the rain clean her. I told her she can be as clean as she wants to be. I checked in on R and asked what he's thinking about. And he said, how my choices have led me here. And then Ruby said to Russell, did you know you were in a dark pit of despair? And Russell says, what do you mean? And the next paragraph is actually redacted, so we don't know what Ruby said to Russell. But like, what are they redacting these things for? Is it because they're so horrible they don't want us to see them? Is it because other people are mentioned? I would like to know in this specific document of the journal entries why certain passages and certain pages were chosen to be redacted. But then Ruby starts writing again and says, E stood in the rain for 2 hours. The next several pages are then again redacted until we get to August 15th, 2023. And she writes, for the human who is not humble, and today this constitutes the vast majority, you have to get to your breaking point. R never would have disclosed his sins had he not had a hope that confessing would bring a sense of relief. I think those redacted pages probably had a lot to do with R completely breaking, completely like having a mental break. And that's why they're redacted. But Ruby continues and says, his motive, because he is not humble, was to feel better. Because all his distractions were taken away and any belief he was getting them back was banished. We were consistent. We followed through. R was left with only one outlet to find relief, confession. The world we live in today does not support children being uncomfortable. They, the adults, are uncomfortable with children being uncomfortable, and so children are comforted, entertained, distracted from the need to confess and change. Stripping down a child's world to the basics of beans and rice and hard work would be considered abuse. And it's not. It's necessary for the prideful child. Now that R has his behaviors out, all of them, he feels like a failure, a monster, useless, worthless. The relief he felt in confession was short-lived, and now there is nowhere to hide, so he becomes overly aggressive, destructive, and combative. Foul language I've never heard is now pouring out. It's his only distraction. Poop, pee, damage. The despair comes in. He is weak, infectious, hopeless, and never felt worse. A setup from the devil. Now is the work. It has been 3 months of consistent boundaries and putting up with his terrorizing to get his confessions out. Who would do this in the real world? I don't know if anyone who would feed their kid in America beans, lentils, rice, and chicken for 3 straight months and refuse all distractions. And this is why Americans are so full of sin and so ready for destruction. They won't repent. August 16th, 2023. Day 2 of R jumping on a mini trampoline. He needs a lot of help with balance and coordination. Today I asked him to take off one sock by balancing on the opposite foot. Lift one foot up and remove the sock while staying balanced. He fell over and hit his nose on the ground and began bleeding. I gave him a wet rag to wipe his face and toilet paper. He dabbed his face merely to smear the blood. Then he blew his nose so harshly through the toilet paper he got blood on his face and all over his shirt. The easiest exercise he is asked to do, he refuses, with the old decrepit stature you would expect of a 90-year-old. He plays completely helpless. His body is full of evil, puffy infection, and he won't participate in the responsibility of flushing it out. R's life, meaning, and purpose has been, don't get caught. And now he's caught, he wants to be done with life. He feels he has no meaning. August 21st, 2023. Poking is a strategy/technique that R seems to respond to. Poking, pouring cold water, towel whip. Wow. The torture that these kids went through is just unbelievable. August 22nd, 2023. First date, R soaked, jumped as told. He did wet his pants twice. God pelted hail from the heavens. He is poking R as well. R staged jumping. Hail in August in St. George is a mystery, a heavenly validation of this intervention. The next several pages are once again completely redacted until August 27th, 2023. And Ruby writes that A visited for a week last week. I picked her up last Sunday, the 20th, and took her home to Springville on Friday. J and A and Pam and I packed 20 boxes and took them to a storage shed in Springville. A gave her 2 weeks' notice. R spent the 22nd through the 25th peeing and pooping. He's out of control. He is defiant, abusive, and mean. He refuses to do what he is asked. Just when I think we found a technique that will really work, R digs in and fights harder, willing to try anything that will grab his attention. I whipped him with a belt yesterday. E too. She peed all over Jodi's garage floor, screamed at her, and lied to her. She's out of control. E screamed to give me her attention after the whipping. She sweeped the garage with some muscle and mopped it. She did a good job. R increased his defiance, and that is the last entry. Because, as we know, Jodi and Ruby are going to get arrested very, very soon. Thank God. Like, honestly, knowing that these women were about to get yanked out of their air-conditioned houses and their comfortable life of abusing children with nobody stopping them, that was the only way I could get through reading these entries. And it took me a few days to actually read them through because I had to stop and take breaks. Now, I do want to talk about some of the things that Ruby mentioned in these journal entries, certain terminologies she used, such as articulating and boundaried. And I also want to tell you what Ruby and Jodi have to say for themselves now that this has all come out, because stuff's coming out constantly. But this video is going to be over 2 hours long as it is. So if you want a third part to this, where we go over all that stuff and more, let me know in the comments. But I'm going to sign off for now. So don't forget to like the video if you liked it. Share it if you think it's worth sharing. Subscribe if you haven't already. And until next time, stay kind, stay beautiful, stay safe. And I'll see you very, very soon. Bye.
Straight down, and that river runs deep, the mountains get steep, and the voices getting too loud. Oh, these feelings I've buried, it's looking like a cemetery. They're coming back from the grave, calling out my name, better say a Hail Mary. Well, you don't know how deep it goes until it's getting you slowly. So you got to let it go. I got blood on